What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. Today I just want to jump on real quick and do a quick tutorial on how to use Lightroom, whether it's on your phone or on your computer. This tutorial will basically help you start editing your pictures a little bit better and understanding the settings that are involved with Lightroom. So let's jump right in. So for the picture that I chose for this, I chose a picture that I took in Acadia that's a little underexposed, so you see the dark areas in the image right around here. So the first thing you want to do with all of your image is you want to start out by cropping your image. You want to see what you should have in view. You want to lead your viewer's eye somewhere, which in this particular picture I'm going to use the boulder for what I want the main subject to be. So we can take out some of this and a little bit of the sky and a little bit of this rock here. So after you cropped it, you also want to straighten it. I usually use auto straightener, which couldn't straighten automatically, which is fine. It means I took the picture good. So let's move on to some of the settings in here. So all these settings you see here, if you go hover over top of it, it'll basically tell you what it is. So exposure controls the brightness of your photo. So like I said, this photo is taking underexposed, so I kind of want to boost this lighting up. So let's go up, and you see it raises the exposure up, and if we go down, it'll make the photo darker. So we're just going to raise this up a little bit, get the rock more in view here. I'm happy with that. So the contrast, if we move over that determines the contrast between the light and the dark colors of your image. So basically, if we move this up, you can see how down here it got a little darker, and if we move this down, it gets a little bit brighter. So I'm going to move this down just a tad to about 15 there. Happy with that. So then we move on to highlights. If we roll over that, this controls the brightness of the lighter parts of your image, so up here basically. So if we mess with the highlights, I want to drop these down to get the clouds to pop a little bit more. And I'm happy with that. So when I move the highlights, you'll see that the rock kind of got a little bit darker. Don't worry about that. We're going to take care of that in the next step, which is shadows. So if we roll over the shadows controls the brightness of the darker areas of the image. So that's going to fix where the highlights dropped on the rock area. So I want to boost that up a tiny bit so that way we can get that back in view. About 22, and I'm happy with that. So now for whites and blacks, this is basically, it sounds like what it is. The whites basically set the white point of an image. So if we drop this down just a bit, you'll see that the clouds are going to go down, make them pop a little bit more. So actually I'm going to do that to about 50 there. Happy with that. And blacks does the opposite. Blacks will set the black point of an image. I'm going to drop the blacks down a little bit darker to get the texture of the rocks a little bit better. So we're going to come back to tone curve because I usually do that last, and we're going to move on to the color section. I don't touch much in the color section. This is because I have my preset set, and what I'll usually do is I'll clip one of my presets first and then adjust these effects and the light area based on my preset. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you what these do. So basically the temperature determines how warm or cool your picture you want it. So if we raise the temperature, it's going to give it a reddish tone, and if we drop it, it's going to give it more of a bluish tone. For this image, I want to go a little bit more of a reddish tone. Makes it look like it's early morning. I'll keep it there. Tint, I don't really mess with the tint. I'm not going to mess with it, but just for your reference, it determines how green or purple the color appears in the picture. So if I move this up, you can see it gives it a little purple tone, a little green tone down, but I'm not going to mess with that, so I'll just reset it. The vibrance, so vibrance changes the saturation without causing unpleasant color contrast. So if we raise this up, you can see the trees out here got a little bit more vibrant, and if we put it down, they go a little bit cool. So I'm just going to raise that up a little bit just so we have some of that. So the saturation controls saturation of all colors equally. So this, if you boost that up, it'll do the whole image. So you see these got really bright, back here got really bright and the sky got really bright and colorful. And if we drop that down, it'll make the image black and white. We push that all the way up, it's very oversaturated. So we'll just do a tiny bit. I usually do a tiny bit of saturation in all my pictures just to boost the color enhancement. So moving on to effects, I usually do most of these except for grain. But so we'll start with grain. Grain, if you move it to the right, it adds film grain to the picture. So if you're doing a black and white, you might want a little bit of film grain in there to make it look like you took it on a film camera. Just to show you what that does, if I raise that all the way up, you see all the grain. Do it halfway, there's a little bit of grain, but I usually don't use that. So we'll keep that blank. So moving on to texture. Texture basically enhances or reduces the appearance of texture in the photo. For landscapes, I usually boost that up to the right a little bit. For portraits, it's suggested to move it down. So you see if you move it down, it's more of a flat, soft look, where if you move it up, it gives it more texture in the image. But I'm just gonna move that to about 25 there. Happy there. Moving on to clarity, which changes the contrast around the edges of an object in your picture. So that'll be good for like the rock area. So if we boost this up, you see it gets a little brighter, gets more texture, looks more alive. So again, I'm gonna keep that around 25. Moving on from clarity, we have dehaze. So moving it to the left will add haze. Moving it to the right will remove haze in an image. So I just wanna move this to the right a little bit. Show you guys. And to the left. So I'm gonna keep this right about there. I think I'm happy with it, a negative 10-ish. And lastly, we'll talk about vignette. Vignette, I think that's how you say it. It makes the outer edges of the photo lighter or darker. So if you move it down, it's gonna add kind of like a black border around it. If you move it up, it'll add a white border around it. I usually add a little bit of a black border to all my images just to make the center of the image pop a little bit. So now that we're finished going over the basics, what I'll usually do is I'll go back, look at the crop, see if I like how it ended up, how I cropped it, which I do want to take out a little bit more of the sky over there and add a little bit more of the rocks in. Maybe actually move it down to there, and I'm happy with what I got out of this image without using any presets. Like I said, this image was underexposed at first. We boosted up this area here to make that more visible. And then we boosted up the colors in the trees a little bit to make that pop. And now you have the follow the eye right up to the rock from the trees, which is always nice to see the little car down here. And we'll talk about the tone curve. Tone curve is basically all these settings put into this curve. So you see here, we'll start. You see down in the bottom here it says shadows. So if I raise that up, it does the same thing that the shadows does. So I'm gonna leave that right about there. Like I said, I do this at the end just to final tone the image after I've done this. And then we go on, there's darks. So you can boost that up a little bit, bring it down a little bit, does the same thing as above. It's basically the shadows, the blacks, the whites, and the highlights here. So boost up that because I kind of like how this kind of looks like the sun is coming off the rock. Keep it, yeah. Move on to the light. I'm gonna bring that down to go that way. Up here gets a little bit darker and that light here kind of pops a little more. And then highlights, I'm actually gonna boost that up a little bit because I liked how it brought the sky out a little bit. So that's basically how I edit my basic pictures when I first started. What I ended up doing though was when I found edits that I like, I saved them as presets. And presets are basically saved edits that you like. So we'll go over to this picture and I'll just show you some of my presets here. So if we go into here, these are just some of my presets that I have saved. And then of course when you're using a preset, you want to go back and adjust those settings that we just talked about, the effects, the color, the light. You want to adjust that to the specific picture. You don't want to just slap on a preset and leave it like that. You want to go in and actually edit it a little bit. So say we're going to use my preset, the mountains. Go in, I'll automatically take out the grain. I always add that just in case. I'll add a little bit more vignette. We'll expose that up a little bit. Contrast, I want to move up a little bit. Highlights, we'll check that out. I probably want to move that down a little bit to get the sky. Shadows, I'm going to move up a little bit to get over here a little bit more bright. And then the whites, I'm going to move down to get that sky popping again. And blacks, I'm going to move up a little bit to get this a little bit more bright. And then I just always add a little dehaze, a little clarity, and a little texture to my landscape photos. That would be using a preset. It's a lot quicker. Presets are nice for when you have big projects, like when I go on trips and I have over 400, 500 pictures. It's nice to just slap a preset on and then boom, 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 switch things up really quick and move on to the next picture instead of going through everything, seeing if I like it and doing all that. So if you're interested to see what my preset pack looks like, here is the same image edited with all 5 of my presets. Check them out. Like I said, they'll be on sale at some point next week. Follow my socials. I'll announce when they're dropped. But here are 5 images starting with the original on all 5 presets. That's all for today. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.